right, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good to be back. This is take two on, or maybe not take two, but round two, I should say, on this Saturday, October 1st. Saturday, October 1st. And it's good to be on here again and continuing on with our exploration of Saint Cyril and his reconstructed commentary on Psalm 50, King David's great Psalm of repentance. And I noted it was the hour that didn't end up getting streamed there, the first attempt today, that this is indeed, having been reconstructed from the Cateni, the patristic chains. This commentary is, I found just through searching, like sometimes you run across a verbal form you're not totally sure of, and you just do a simple Google search of it to see if it's used elsewhere. And in doing so, I found that Theodoret, a contemporary of St. Cyril, associated with the Antiochene school of thinking of like the so-called schools of Alexandria and Antioch, kind of different, broadly speaking, interpretive approaches within the church. They're in the first, in the 4th century, 4th and 5th century. And of course, behind it, so Theodoret, he's like the kind of moderate, mediating figure between the Alexandrian approach, so-called, and the Antiochene approach, so-called, with Theodore of Mopsuestia, Diodore of Tarsus, being the kind of the standard bearers of the more of the Antiochene approach, Antiochene literalism, whereas Alexandria is more associated with, of course, with Origen, and then certainly Cyril, Athanasius, so Didymus the blind would be in there as well, I suppose. So being more open, at least in principle, to all these different terms: anagogical, tropological, allegorical, noetic kinds of readings. So in any case, a little bit of a rabbit trail there, but I found that this verbal form I was looking for, I was searching for, was used by Theodoret in his commentary on Psalm 50, which then which has actually been translated in the Fathers of the Church series in the Catholic University of America Press. So I just was scanning that a little, and I suspect that some of the excerpts that we'll go through in our study of Cyril actually come from Theodoret. So interesting. So, but that's to be expected. These patristic cateni, these chains, have quotes that are often blended from various sources or misattributed. So no surprise to find that. So what all that we're seeing here might not be directly from Cyril's pen. So, but that's, again, no surprise for those who spend time with the patristic chains. So let's dive back in here, and just to kind of recall where we've been. We did a short, close to half hour here earlier today, and let me pull that up back for my own. So Cyril was commenting on verse 3 of Psalm 50, and we see him start to develop his Christological reading, like this, that David, in his choice of words, his expressions, is actually prophesying about Christ, who will be the ultimate one to blot out sin. And it's him, in effect, that it's Christ himself who is the great mercy, right? That David is asking for, or that David is petitioning in regard to, right? Have mercy on me, O God, according to your great mercy. So he is the one who will blot out all sin, the sin of the whole cosmos, right? And because of that, all sin, Cyril quotes Psalm 106 there, all sin will block up its mouth. Means, the discoverer of sin, who has the co-worker, in the law of the law of I'm finding here. Yeah, the law of the flesh, or the law that is provoking or chafing or acting in a wild fashion, untamed fashion in the members of the flesh, right? So the devil has an ally in that, a co-worker in that, and then sin itself is kind of this. So we think of the devil as like an accuser, right? And then sin itself, that's this cosmic reality. So because Christ will take away the sin of the cosmos, sin of the world, it leaves sin with nothing to say, nothing to accuse. So sin being personified almost there, right? That just as Paul does, sin, the law, death, Satan are all these cosmic forces at work in the drama of the cosmic drama. So sin will have nothing to say. Its mouth will be shut up. And because God is the one who justifies, and that being the case, who tis o katakrinon, who is the one who condemns, if God is the one who justifies? So very interesting and hopeful reading, right? Thank God. So let's move on then to verse 4, and see what Cyril has to say as we move in that direction. Let me expand this window here. Oh, I don't want to do that. There we go. Okay. Move it up. All right. So moving on to verse 4. And we'll see this Christological reading continue here. Christological salvation historical reading. A little cup of tea here on the late Saturday night. Peaceful. So epipleon. Highlight that. Epipleon plinon me apotis anomias mu. And then this abbreviation, which is ke ta lipa. So the things that follow, the remainder, things that remain. So one Greek abbreviation for what would be the Latin et cetera, or et cetera, and the following, and things following. So epipleon plinon me. So wash me thoroughly from my, I say lawlessness here because just lexically, the alpha privative with nomias, so the law root there, nomos, right? So lawlessness, right? So to be without law, to be lawless. So we could translate transgression, I suppose, or iniquity, but I've opted for that presently. So wash me thoroughly from my lawlessness, et cetera, etc. Ke talipa. So legon the to epipleon plinon me. So when he says, a nominative masculine singular participle, legon, when he says to, this passage, right? epipleon plenonme, wash me thoroughly, palin ora, kata to ikos, is to Christu mysterion. Ora there being an imperative, so from orao, to see, to observe, behold. So do behold, do observe again, palin, kata to ikos, as is fitting, according to what is appropriate. Is to Christu mysterion, and I think the is connected, jump over the genitive there to the accused, the mysterion, the mystery. So do look, do observe again, as is fitting, at or to the mystery of Christ, mysterion of Christ. So Cyril is saying, when David uses these words, he is channeling prophetically the mystery of Christ. It's a Christological prophetic reading. All right, Iken, right along here. Iken men gar ke onomos tin the idatos katharsin. Is ke pansophos Pavlos diamnimonevi legon. So this isn't quite a true men deconstruction, but we'll see this very often. Men here will often be like on the one hand, and then there'll be a the, like the conjunction the. There'll be a the on the other hand. So men the construction. See these all the time. Here, I think the plene might actually be functioning as almost the on the other hand, or yet, or rather. So, but we'll see that. So we're looking for a main verb, and we don't have to look very far because it's the first word of the sentence. So, iken, from echo, to have. So third singular, I think aorist here. Aorist, because of the stem change. But yeah, I always want to... I'm not a grammarian, so I have no... I'm sorry, imperfect. So not an aorist, an imperfect. So I always want to check myself. So iken men gar ke onomos. So here's our subject, onomos. The law had for. So let me start over. For the law, and I think ke would be here also, or indeed also had, on the one hand, tin katharsin the idatos. So the purification through water. Relative pronoun here, of which, is, so genitive, so referring back to the purification, right? The genitive, feminine genitive, but so the feminine referring in concord with tin katharsin, so of which purification, the all-wise, o pansophos Pavlos, diamnimonevi, made mention, the most wise Paul, or the all-wise Paul, made mention also, ke, when he says, saying, quoting Hebrews here, Igar to Emma tavron ke tragon ke spodos dhamaleos rantitsusa tus kekino menus agiadzi prostin ti sarkos katharotita. For if the blood of bulls and goats and the ashes of a heifer, sprinkling those who have been defiled or made common, and this threw me off. I know Hebrews pretty well, and I was thrown off by this. The kinao root. I was thinking in terms of like have in common, or to partake of, like to be in communion with, that sense. But in this context, it's referring to being made common in a bad sense, like to be defiled. Right? So this heifer, the ashes of a heifer, sprinkling those who have been defiled. If this blood and the ashes, agiadzi, sanctify for the purification of the flesh. So kind of leaves us hanging a bit as far as the quote, but just making the point that these old covenant realities dealt with the purification of the flesh. So if that's the case, right, the law had this purification through water. Nevertheless, plin, or yet, o typos in adranis is aponipsin amartias eprateto de monon prostin katharotita tis sarkos. Yet, nevertheless, the type was adranis. We saw this, a verb from this root a little bit, one of the earlier streams, drao, to do, or to effect, to make, kind of like pieo in a way. But so adranis would be ineffectual, right? So yet the type, that is the law, which was a type of the reality to come, the type was ineffectual is aponipsin, for the washing away, apo, away here, the washing away of sin. And here, so, and it was kind of hard to translate this root sometimes, but we'll look it up and I'll show it to you here. But and it was practiced, it was put into effect only, it was used only for monon, only pros tin katharotita tis sarkos, only for the purification of the flesh. So let's look that. I think I actually have it up on the morphology, but copy it and we'll come over here to the morphology and go. Okay. All right, so let's plug that in and see what we get. Eprateto. So we'll see, and we know it's middle passive. So we'll be looking for particularly middle passive usages. So we have one set of usages here, meaning to pass through, and I'm not sure what EP is there. I'd have to do a little digging to find out. But not our sense here. So experience, to achieve, affect, accomplish. I think that's where we're definitely in the realm of to bring about, to do, simply to do, to get something from someone, to attempt. What's in terms of case? It's so it's has the preposition. It goes right into a prepositional phrase, pros. So it was achieved, it was effected for the purification of the flesh. So let's keep looking. It was see, nothing. I looked at this earlier. Practiced. Yeah, I mean that it was practiced. I think that might even be what I put for the translation. Yeah, it was practiced. Yeah, it was practiced. Yeah, to practice, to do simply, even to do something. this moves into the realm of payment or avenging or punishing. I don't think that's so. Yeah, I think practiced is the proso from, of course, we get praxis, practice from, right? So I think that's in the. I'm sure there's maybe a more artful way. We could get it into English, but for our purposes now, I think that's fair. So it was practiced. This the type of washing was practiced only for the purification of the flesh. But moving on to the new covenant contrast here. So I have to go back to the. Okay. Ide je via Christu, ke I via tu agiu baptismatos, charis ke dynamis, hypervenusatin en nomo katharsin, epiplion ek plini. So here the contrast is, right? So this is the case. This was the case with the type. Now we're moving to the reality. So, but indeed, here the kind of like a particle that intensifies and affirmatively, right? But indeed, so we have two articles here: e via Christu and e via tu agiu baptismatos, charis ke dynamis. So interesting syntax here. So the grace and power through Christ, and the grace and power through holy baptism. So interesting. There's might be what's called a hendiades or hendiades in Greek, 1 through 2. So expressing two concepts. Expressing one concept through two expressions, through two different elements. So, meaning that these two things have to be understood together, obviously. So the grace and power that comes through Christ is, in fact, the grace and power that comes through holy baptism, right? Through the sacrament, the mystery in the life of the church. So this grace and power is through Christ, that is through holy baptism, which hypervenusa, which transcends, hyper, to go beyond, transcend, or exceeds, goes beyond, transcends, teen and nomo katharsin. So this grace and power which transcends the purification in the law, epiplion, quoting there using the psalm text, ek plini, and then he, instead of going with plinon, he uses it with the little intensifier there, ek. So ek plini. So yeah, intensifier. So, but the grace and power through Christ and through holy baptism, which transcends the purification of the law, washes thoroughly. So there's our verb, of course, with the subject of grace and power. So, and now malon the little what's more here, malon, a comparative. So sometimes can be used contrastively, or rather, as I have here but here it's more of it's not a contrast. It's more, it's not a contrast with what immediately came before. It's a contrast with the old covenant. So the new covenant baptism, which is the power, which is through Christ, through the power and grace that's through Christ, that's through holy baptism, which transcends the law, the purification of the law, washes thoroughly, and indeed, rather, or even more, malon the keton is apan ergatzete katharismon ke avtistis psychis. So, and rather it affects, rather, ergatzome, it bring another kind of, like a synonym for eproteto here. It accomplishes, it, maybe not a synonym, sorry, it was a little, but it accomplishes, it effects, ton, katharismon, the purification, indeed, ke avtis tis psychis, of the soul itself, indeed of the soul itself. And then we have a little, another intensifier, isapan, like unto completeness, unto totality. So complete, it affects the complete purification of the soul itself, and as well. So ke, yeah. And or one of these ke, right, as well. So we have a new Old Covenant, New Covenant contrast, and then a flesh soul or flesh spirit contrast, right? The washing of the Old Covenant dealt with the flesh, and the New Covenant reality transcends that and washes completely, even to the purification of the very soul, the soul itself. All right. So we're moving right along here on to verse 6. Take another sip here, my delicious tea. Little lemon ginger. Yeah. Make sure this is still going strong, but which it looks like it is. So, all right. So on to verse 6 here. So si mono imarton, and then the ke ta lipa. So to you, literally, in the dative here, to you alone have I sinned. It's interesting that we normally, have that as against you alone. So let me pull up and I'll share this. Pull up the Bible Works and just take a look at the language of the psalm here. So there we have verse 3, verse 4. Interesting, look, epipleon, here they separate them. Whereas in Cyril's text, they're squished together, epipleon. So that can be confusing. That happens every once in a while. It can be confusing. So epipleon, unto fullness, right? Epipleon, unto fullness. Wash me, so thoroughly, hence, from my lawlessness and from my sin, katharisonme, yeah, purify me, David prays. Ati tinanomian mu ego ginosko, for my lawlessness I myself know, ke im amartia mu enopion mu estin diapantos, and my sin is before me, estin enopion mu is before me through all, so continually, diapantos, standard time marker there, continually. Now on to verse 6, where we're picking up. Si mono imarton. Note here we have I thought that looked funny. We have an accent mistake here in the in the Greek, the transcription. So I'm going to highlight that. So it's supposed to be a rough breathing mark there, imarton. And of course, don't make any distinction in the modern pronunciation between rough and smooth breathing marks, but still should be correct there. Simono imarton. Again, so to you I have sinned. To you alone have I sinned. And ke toponiron enopionsu, and the evil before you, episa, I have done. Apos on the keothis, apos on the keothis, entis logisu, so that you, on there, subjunctive, we expect a subjunctive or an optative, here it's a subjunctive, so that you might be justified, that you might be proven righteous, justified, in your words, entis logisu, ke nikisis en to krines these, right? And you might overcome, be victorious, prevail, when you are judged. Now that's a really interesting, of course Paul quotes this in Romans, right? In Romans 3. And Paul is he's much of Romans is an exploration of theodicy, covenantal theodicy. Right? But let's note the difference with the Hebrew up here too. And my Hebrew's a little rusty, but we can. So lima'an, therefore, titzdak bidavreka. So that would be kametz chatuf, I think, closed unaccented syllable. Bidovreka. So therefore, you, imperfect verb, so you will be justified. You'll be righteous. Treating this as I think an infinitive. Infinitive with the bait preposition, the kaf as the subject, when you speak. So infinitive construct, I believe. Look up here. Oh, no, I was wrong. Oh, no, I'm right. Infinitive construct with a suffix, second person, masculine, singular. So when you speak, call, so active voice. When you speak, therefore you'll be justified when you'll be righteous when you speak. Tizke, another imperfect here, zakah. Not sure, can't remember what this means. Yeah, pure, that's what I was thinking. Pure, you will be pure, clean. Bishoftecha, shafat, to judge. So when, another call infinitive construct, when, and then subject of the infinitive, in effect, infinitive construct, when you judge, shoftecha. But it's call, so it's an active, in the active voice, versus the Greek, which is in the middle. So when you are judged, right? So on the one in the Hebrew, God is the one judging. In the Greek of verse 6, it's almost like God is in the dock, right? That is, God is almost on trial in this theodicy, this exploration of covenantal theodicy. So it sets up a really, really interesting kind of conundrum. And I think Paul is really, when he quotes this in Romans 3, he's really keyed into this middle form here. You will prevail when you are judged. Like, how is God going to show that he is in fact righteous in light of the failure of Israel according to the flesh to live up to their covenantal responsibilities, to accept Christ, when he comes. And really that's what the whole letter is exploring, right? How God is righteous nevertheless, in spite of Israel's according to the flesh, their apparent and temporary, rejection of Christ. So that's an interesting textual difference there between the Hebrew and the Septuagint that would be obscured. Of course, the fathers are dealing with, not that they're completely unaware of the Hebrews. Scholars like Origen or Jerome, and then others who are using the hexapla that Origen put together. Eusebius of Caesarea, Theodoret, even Cyril. Will appeal to these hexaplaric readings where. So the fathers are aware, of textual diversity, but as far as like an authoritative text, they certainly see the Septuagint as the church's Bible, and so this would be the touchstone of, say, theological commentary or dogmatic reflection, we might say. So you will prevail, so that you might prevail when you are judged. Interesting, right? So, all right. So that was a little tangent, but very important here, I think. So let's go back to our text. Okay, and this, I'm not totally sure about this first line. I'll have to do a little more kind of unpacking and maybe look at see what the Latin, the Latin translation, how they handle this. So, asavis olegon Vasili. So asavis is, I think here, a nominative adjective, nominative masculine singular adjective, impious. So, which is in concord then with olegon. So, the impious one who says he rules. Yeah, so I'm not sure what Vasili, if that's the from Vasileo, so third singular. I think present active, I believe. So just simple. Oops, just like that. I'm not sure what else it would be. Oh, I was thinking it was Vasileo. So their Perseus is saying it's the. That certainly makes sense as a dative ending. So masculine noun, masculine singular dative for king, Vasilevs. So, all right. So I guess I should have actually looked that up instead of assuming I knew what it meant. Right? So the impious one says to the king, apparently. So the impious person who says to the king, to a king, let's say there's no article there, and then you transgressed, paranomis, paranomeo. So you transgressed. So it's, I don't know, is this supposed to be some sort of a quote? The impious person who says to a king, you transgressed, said the divine scripture, Ephi pu ethia. Ephi pu ethiography. The divine scripture said pu, like somewhere. So I'm not totally sure what this means, but I'll have to spend a little more time with that and get some clarity. But it levels out a little, I think, here as we move forward. So epiditinin udis in o elegkin me dinamenos imartikota epinorthosas Simonos, si ke mono imarton. There's the right accent. So I got it right that time. Epi, so since or when, can be really either. Since then, like therefore, since then, no one, een, the third singular of imi here, no one was able, able, maybe we could say there was no one able, the nomenos, right there, there was no one able to reprove me, elegin me, and then imartikota, modifying me, here the accusative, so me who had sinned, or who was sinning, who had sinned. I believe that's it, the perfect participle. So I plug it in, just make sure. So who had sinned, I believe. Yeah, perfect participle. A masculine accusative. Yeah, right. So modifying me. So since then, there was no one who was able to reprove me who had sinned, but epinorthosas de simonos, but you alone corrected, like orthao, we get orthodoxy, right? Orthao, so epon orthao, to set right, to correct, to set straight. But you alone corrected or set straight, implied me, right? It's not actually there, but distributed from the previous clause there. But you alone set me straight, corrected me. Si ke mono imarton, to you alone have I sinned. Kalos de prostethike ketoponiron enopionsu episa. So kalos here is an adverb. So well, appropriately, well did he set forth, prostithemi, did he propose, did he set forth, and the evil before you I did, have I done. Tutogar ke enti historia tethite, ofthgar fisi to iegonos poniron enopion kyriou. For this also was set, put in the history. For it says, garfisi, standard patristic, like kind of quotation, for it says, or he says, the scripture says. Sometimes it's unclear whether it's like this, the human author, like David or Moses, or if it's just a generic, the scripture says. But for it says, the to iegonos. This, I mean, it's presented as a quotation, but it's substantially different from the Kings or Samuel text that we noted, or that he had quoted just a few paragraphs earlier. Ophthi appeared, right? The to iegonos, the thing that had happened, perfect participle here. The thing that had happened appeared, evil, poniron, before the Lord, enopion kyriou. Okay. So nothing too compelling there, I suppose. But let's see what he does with this next line of verse 6. The intriguing one, shall we say. So that, opos on, there's our optative or subjunctive marker. So that you might be justified in your words and you might prevail or be overcome or be victorious when you are judged. Okay. So, ego men phisi proxenos genomin kakon. To son dikeon analampi ke utos. So, I myself, ego, he says, proxenos genomin kakon. I myself became or was proxenos, the cause of evils. Let's quick look this one up. Just get a sense of the range. See this fairly frequently, but okay. Proxenos. All right, so patron representative, that's one kind of set of usage. Patron protector, now we get down here into it as an adjective. So assisting, relieving, causing, or producing. There's our kakon, that's what's used, right? So proxenos with the genitive as an adjective, right? So causing or producing. So I became, or I myself was the cause of evils. That might even be better. Which is exactly what I put. Look at that, great. So I was the cause of evils, but there's our men that construction, right? Men. Oh, let me put I always do that. Remember to put the Greek back up. So men on the one hand, and then the on the other hand. Sometimes you need to sometimes for clarity that is helpful to actually put on the one hand, and on the other hand, many times it's completely unnecessary and just obvious and assumed. So in my earlier days as a translator, I was trying to always write that out, but it just becomes very clunky. So I, on the one hand, or I myself, he says, was the cause of evils, but ton son dikeon. No, I think this does occur in Septuagintal and New Testament Greek, but I remember seeing it pretty frequently in Proverbs, where the possessive takes the same case as what it's modifying. So it's not dikeon su, right? Your justice of you. With the genitive, it's son dikeon. But means the same thing. Your justice or judgment. But your judgment or justice, analampi, shone forth, I say. Also, ke utos, indeed, also in this way. Genitive absolute here. Chryseos gar genomenis, for when judgment existed or happening. Another genitive absolute here. Ke ton parasu is eme genomenon pheromenon is meson. And so I said for when judgment came, and then next genitive absolute, and keton. I think these are working in tandem here. So the things, and I, for the sake of English and clarity in English, I turn this. So of course it's a middle passive participle. The passive participle with parasu, from you or by you, as like the things pharaoh, to bring. So the things brought by you. So I just turned that, in this case, into an active form. And with the things you brought, that, yeah, yeah. So I'm not even sure we can give a, like, have this, the genome rendered in some way in the English. I think it just flows together. So with the genomenon, pheromenon, and the things, the existing things that you brought to me, is meson, into the midst. And let's check this to see if there's a kind of special sense with this construction, is meson. Back to our Perseus project friend here, meson. So in the midst, unto the midst. Okay. Looking for. So I mean, the question is, in the midst of what, right? What is it? What are the things that God brought? Things that existed that God brought, is meson, into the midst. Like, is it a time reference, in the midst of time, like between, and then between what? Between the time of the sin and the time of David or Nathan's confrontation. Is that the sense? Let's see, intervening space, right? Yeah. En to meso, in the midst. There's en. Looking for is. S meson. Here we go. So publicly. Oh, okay. In common to all. Publicly. That's Pharaoh, and even with Pharaoh here. Isto meson pharin. To bring forward publicly. Interesting. To meson. Meson in the middle. Of course, that's here just as an adverb. There's no is. No, it's not a prepositional. So that was an interesting option there. With a S, of course, S just being another way of writing is. S meson. Publicly. So let's see, and the things that happen being brought into the public by you, the things that took place, the things that, okay, and the things that came about from you, that came about to me from you, which were brought into the public. Perhaps. And with the things that that came about from you, which were brought Oops. Started. Where's that? Okay. There we go. Started changing the wrong, the wrong. And with the things, so we no doubt about the genitive absolute. And with the things that came about, menon, with the things that came about by you, or from you, things which came about to me, from you, which were brought into the public, into the public, following that one rating. So I'll kind of, I guess I'll put a footnote there and note my question about this expression. Meaning. There we go. All right. So, and then we have another genitive absolute. Make sure I have the, oh, see, I have the Greek text up again. Sorry, I keep doing How are we doing, everyone out there? Hope everyone's doing okay. And this is such a fun translating is such a fun process of exploration and learning. Really, it's really exciting. But we'll finish this, or at least this. Not too much further to go, but picks up a little here. So we have three genitive absolutes with the kriseos, with the for when judgment happened or came, and with the things that came about to me from you, which were brought into the public. Perhaps one would be good to check the Latin against that, see how they read it. And keton par emu. Keton par emu tatol mi menon, parexe tatso menon, ekinis, and with the tolmao, I think is the root there. So something done with daring. Perfect, of course, the reduplication here. We see a perfect participle. So, and with the things daringly done, par emu, by me, and those things then, which, see, concordant in the genitive plural, which were examined, put to examination, ekinis, by those ones. So, and I'm not sure exactly what that's referring back to. Perhaps those who, depending on how we read that second, that previous line, those being brought, those things being brought into public. So I need to do more work on this section, but C, men apophanthisi, dikeos ke philanthropos, you, on the one hand, will appear. So this is a future passive, second person singular, future passive. You will appear righteous. You, epophano. So like you will appear. You will appear in the sense of be apparent. You will be shown forth as righteous and loving mankind, philanthropos. But I, ego, ego the, I will ophthesome, I will appear, ego the paramono, ego the paradonomos, ophthesome ke akaristos. But I myself will appear, will a transgressor, or I said I will be seen as transgressor and without favor, without grace, without thanks, even possible rendering there. So maybe next stream we'll come back and revisit this. I think that this, on the one hand you, on the other hand me, right? I think that clarifies a little what's going on in those three, like for when judgment comes about, and the things, I'll revisit that. I think so. It's kind of, the courtroom scene, I think, is what, these things are being brought into the midst. The things daring things that I had done versus the things that you had done to me, even, right? God's goodness, perhaps, or even how God has responded to and forgiveness, perhaps. But God will be vindicated in this courtroom drama, right? And David will be shown to be the one who's in the wrong. Of course, as if there's any question about that. But this is the text. It's setting up this courtroom drama. Here we are. All right, let's finish this paragraph and then we'll call it quits. Totinin, and this I'll have to check the Greek, but I think most of this paragraph is actually from Theodoret of Cyrus. So he makes this. I know I definitely saw this line as I was scanning Theodoret's commentary. So we might be reading Theodoret here, Cyril's rival, or one of them, right, in the Christological controversies, rather than Cyril himself. Interesting kind of twist. But all right, so totinin opos. Let me italicize that. So he's actually quoting, the psalm text there. So this then, or the text then, so that uk estin etias en tavtha the lotikon. So this word then, so that, uk is not the lotikon, from related to the verb the lao, to indicate, to show. So I guess that would be, here would be adjectival. So it is not indicative of, here, entavtha, of cause, etias. So opos is not talking about an actual cause here. Why does he say this? Well, let's see. Ugar diatuto imarten o David ina o theos dikeothi. For David did not sin for this reason, diatuto, on this account, ina o theos dikeothi, so that God might be justified. So I guess that would be the cause, the causal sense. Allah, but tunantion, but the opposite, or the contrary, but au contraire, but the opposite. And even by the sin of this one, David, but even by the sin of this one, tu theu to dikeon anadiknite, the justice of God is shown forth, or manifested again, is shown. Dignimi, to show. So ana is shown again or shown forth. So I think he's trying to flip he's trying to give a sense that is befitting God, we might say, which runs a little against the language, but let me quickly see if I can find that passage in Psalm. So Robert Hill, the late Robert Hill, of course, just voluminous translator, and for which we're as the church and as academia are just truly blessed to have so much of his work available. So read here from I saw it. Okay, yeah. So it seems to be an abbreviated form of Theodoret's commentary. Let me see if I can share this. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we see there, consequently, the word "so that" here does not suggest cause. The reason for either David's own sin or later the people's not being for God to be justified, but the opposite. So the Catenist, excerpted Theodoret and took out a few words there, obviously. So, but the opposite, that with the committing of sin by them, and here it's plural. In Cyril's text, it was singular, tutu, of him, of this one, right, the David. But the opposite, that with the committing of sin by them, God's righteousness is highlighted. So I assume that's the rendering for anadiknite, to be shown forth. So we might again be seeing Cyril's language, or confusing them, Theodoret's language here. But all right, so was that it? I think. One more line here. Panton gar anthropon pepite pronion. So of course providence, pronoia, providence, and then panton anthropon, of all men or with all men. For pepite, I'm translating exercises. He effects, pieu, he does, he performs providence, oversight, foresight even, over all men. Providence over all men. All right. So Theodoret wants to see it working the other way, right? That human human actions, sins, do not provide occasions for God to be justified, as if he were responding to them, but rather the other way. Human actions, sins, etc., manifest God's justice, right? His providence over all things. So that's kind of that's the way he's suggesting we read this. Not that God is actively in the dock, but rather all of the drama of creation and salvation history become occasions for God's righteousness to be manifested. So interesting, but check that last line. So the last line of Theodora reads, "After all, he bestowed complete providence on him, on them, and on all people." So I guess close to this. I'll have to check the Greek behind there, but all right. The next line here, verse 7, takes us into some really intriguing waters. And let me check the Bible Works here again. It's so it's verse 7 according to the Septuagint, but in most other places you'll see it as verse 5. And this is perhaps one of the most significant verses related to the dogmatic discussion of original sin or ancestral sin. And there's a really, really good paper on this essay by Adam Cooper. So it's called "Sex and the Transmission of Sin, Patristic Exegesis of Psalm 50, verse 5." Actually, verse 7 here in the Septuagint. So it's available in Meditations of the Heart, the Psalms and Early Christian Thought Practice, Essays in Honor of Andrew Louth, published by Breppels. I think it's 2011. So really, really constructive, helpful discussion of this text we will be looking at. I guess I should expand. You can see that up there. So he actually mentions this, Cyril's comment. He discusses Clement of Alexandria, origins, readings, Augustine, Cyprian, and then, but his main goal is to get to Saint Maximus, the Confessor, and so his point is that there certainly are differences between Maximus and Augustine, but he wants to problematize any sort of oversimplification of East-West division on this question of original sin, ancestral sin. So yes, there are differences. Augustine, has his own particular take, but Maximus, he's arguing, is not as far away from him as one might expect, or depending on your proclivities, might hope. But maybe we'll spend a little time with this, and as we engage this verse 7 next stream. So that's where we're heading, and as we sign off here, I want to wish you all a blessed Sunday, and whoever stumbles across these videos, I hope they prove to be beneficial. And again, the main objective is just to spend time with the Greek text, and for those who again, I'm no expert, but hopefully I'm providing a little guidance for those who might want to branch out, from just reading, say, the New Testament, the Kini of the New Testament, branch out and get their feet wet in some more patristic material that might be a little, difficult and unfamiliar. So this is the goal of this little project I'm doing, and I hope to, if you benefit from this, I look forward to hearing just any feedback and ideas of how to improve things, or things we could do together, texts we could look at together. So I'm open to all that. And as we head into Sunday, the Kyriaki, the Lord's Day. Wish you all a blessed Sunday, and hope to see you here again on the next stream. So blessings to all.